Welcome to Verify in Field, the Millwork Podcast. Your host, Jacob Edmond, CEO of Ductworks, will be interviewing experts in the industry to bring you insights and knowledge about the latest trends, techniques, and challenges in millwork. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and join us as we explore the world of millwork. Here's Jacob.
Today we have Doug Hague, who is the CEO of AWI, joining us, and we're going to dive into a little bit of his background and the history, how he got to where he's at, and talking about AWI and the millwork industry. How are we doing today, Doug?
I'm doing well, Jacob. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking time to join us. I think we start just if you could give us a little bit about your background, how you got to where you're at today, and your experience in the industry, so people who are listening who may not know, would be a good intro.
My background and journey, this could turn into Joe Dirt in a hurry. So this could turn into multiple meetings here on your podcast, but I'll try and leave out all the stories of me getting left behind at the Grand Canyon and everything along the way. But my journey to become CEO of AWI, it's one that would have never been scripted, and just the journey or the aspects of the wood industry, I would not have scripted. And so looking back now, it's a lot easier to see how that all these things aligned and that I've been able to serve this industry in this role. And so my passion for woodworking started back when I was young. I was the one out in the yard just banging hammer and nails. I think probably the first thing I remember hammer and nail stuff. And yes, I'm a rural country Kansas kid. So when people hear this, they're like, "You do that for fun?" Yeah, we did. So here we go, Jacob. First ever thing was an aluminum pie pan, and you draw something that you want to make on it in a marker. And then you go out and on top of a board, take a hammer and nail and you drive it through. So when you hold up the pie pan, you have something. So I think I remember being about 4, 5, 6 years old, doing those sorts of activities outside. And then I'm one of 4 boys. We were ornery. We were constantly building ramps and stuff for our bikes and everything else that boys get themselves in trouble with. So then that morphs into 4-H, where my first project was a basketball hoop on a dowel. I actually have it behind me here in one of the cabinets. Then you screw a block that you put a plastic spoon in there. And so then you take a string and a ball and you try and shoot it into the plastic hoop or into the hoop with the plastic spoon. So that then goes into high school shop class where I'm introduced to real power tools. And I'm grateful that I went to a community that had a very strong vocational arts program. Our high school shop teacher was a phenomenal individual, Mr. Lee Mickle. I think the world of him. And he gave me that foundation that I see today's youth and so many people entering our industry that are absent of. And so I didn't know it at the time, but I had a good leap start or jump ahead of others coming into this industry because I was spoiled by a community and by an educator who cared about their craft and what they were turning out of their community. And again, it's one of those, when you're young, you don't know it. When you're old and you look in the rearview mirror, you go, "Oh, that's where that came from." So high school shop class, 4 years. Back in the day, we did manual drafting. Then we learned AutoCAD. Jacob, I know you do a CAD service. My first AutoCAD experience was on a digitizer pad. So I think that takes you about AutoCAD release 4, 5, somewhere in there. Self-proclaimed CAD nerd, love that side of things. I remember being frustrated both in high school and college with my manual drafting professors and a teacher who would critique that my lines weren't straight, my letters weren't perfect and everything else. And I'm like, but why? There's a computer right back over there that'll do it perfect. We don't need this stuff. Going back to the journey, I'm going to skip college for a second and going back to the journey. The very second time that I sit and interact with customers, we did that in Starbucks or on a job site or somewhere outside of technology. And so that meant it was that moment where I see my college professor, my high school teacher, and the lettering and the drafting and being able to draw in perspective. It meant something because the answer was, yeah, that computer can do it perfect, but that computer takes a little bit longer. It's just a tool. We're sketching concepts, and that computer's back at the office, and we're sitting here at Starbucks, and you have to convey your thoughts to this architect or to this homeowner in this very moment. Now, how do you do that? And that's when I smile and I go, I remember those days that I had to care about my lettering and do all this correctly. And it clicks. And that was one of the journeys where you have those clicking moments. Now, so I graduate high school. I go on to college. My first stop is McPherson College in McPherson, Kansas. And I am a chemistry major, Jacob. I'm looking forward to being a chemist. I love adding too much chemicals of certain things so that you get the bigger explode. You know, the teacher shows you add 5 milliliters of this and 1 of that. And I'm like, yeah, but if we add 10 of this and 7 of that, it's going to be, that's why I left chemistry. Remember, go back to the honorary boys phase if you missed that already. So I have this epiphany. I want to be a chemist, but I look around and it's just me in the lab. I don't know how many minutes we are into this podcast, maybe 5 or 6. You figure out I like to talk. Doug being a chemist, I realized there was nobody to talk to except the chemicals, and also organic chemistry kicked my rear. I figured there had to be something better. I switched to become an industrial arts teacher there at McPherson College and want to give back as a teacher. I started moderating middle school classes at the time and begin my education journey. At the end of that year, my brother graduates from McPherson College. All my friends are leaving, and my grades are not so hot. If we're going to do a podcast, we got to be honest, right, Jacob? So I'm at a small private school, paying lots of money to do not so hot. Things are not going well. I got a buddy who says, come to Pittsburgh State University. I'm a plastics major. You're going to love it here. Okay, so I applied and get in. And then my uncle says, you're going to Pitt State? I said, yeah. He said, you need to be a wood tech major. Oh, okay. I like woodworking. So I'm in. And come find out, my uncle had graduated from Pittsburgh State with a wood technology major, but I'm not sure I really knew that until maybe a couple months later after all this clicks. So I enroll, get there, and I become a stellar student. And my parents are like, what happened? And I'm like, this place is easy. Don't tell people at Pitt State that, but it was fun. I had found what I was searching for, so then it became easy. And if the audience, if you hear me, I don't mean that it was easy in the sense that anybody can do it, and that you found that it thing that makes your drive and makes you wake up every morning, makes you want to complete this thing. And I'd found it and I loved it.
Easy for you to care and be motivated by it.
Absolutely. And again, to put this in terms of employees and employers who might be listening to this show, everybody's in search of that thing, right? And it's our jobs as leaders to help them connect that thing to whatever the things are that we do in a day-to-day aspect, so that once that connection is made, you can then watch that individual flourish. Promise you. I am at Pittsburgh State for 3 years. That's where I like to tell everybody I graduated from Pitt State in 3 years. Sounds really good. It doesn't talk about the other 2 years at McPherson, but hey, everybody's got their own story to tell. Along that way, my uncle says, hey, you need to do internships and we'll hire you up here in Kansas City. You need to come up here and interview. All right.
Your uncle was working in the industry at that point?
My uncle's in the industry. I don't know the official title. I'll just say shop foreman. And it is I'll never forget these words because I told everybody that I'd landed this job. Are you ready? It was an architectural millwork plastic laminate manufacturing facility, right? And when you stitch all those things together, that's something for a 19-year-old to be proud of. But most people on the street say, what did you say? Yeah. I work for an architectural millwork plastic laminate facility. I show up there, Jacob, you can smile now that we know our industry. I was raised, job interview, be respectful, dress appropriately, all of those sorts of things. I show up in khakis and a polo. I'm 19 years old, a sophomore in college, and looking to land my first internship that I'm basing it all off my high school knowledge because I've not really done anything in the woods world in college yet. The interview goes well with the owner. He says, yes, we'll have you. And then I proceed the next. He laughs and smiles about my khakis. And then I spend the next 3 hours down on the shop floor catching parts off of a slider. I'm in awe because it's the first time I've ever seen a sliding table saw, right? And so here is this individual who can cut parts and we can rotate a 4x8 sheet and do all this. And I just got to stand here and catch parts. How cool is this? Again, I'm hooked. Now, fast forward, there's kids listening. And by the way, the definition of a kid in my mind is probably anywhere from 7 to 30. And I'm 43 and maybe still qualify as a kid sometimes. But if there's a kid listening, you're like, you had fun catching off of a slider? Yeah, but that was technology then. And so today it would be this equivalent of someone walking in a manufacturing facility and seeing a robotic arm go to work. And you just catch yourself being in awe of it. It would be that for you. So do the internship, go to Pitt State, start the learning, love it. Go back a second year for the internship. Now I'm doing a lot more. And by the way, technology in this shop was the slider and an edge bander because we were doing all of our line boring on a Bloom machine that had the 2 rows of 7, I think it was. And so you were plugging holes in 7 at a time. Again, loved the machine, but at the time, that was technology and that's what we had. And the ownership was profitable doing it. And that's also my admiration here along the journey is that how people find ways to be profitable regardless the era or the time that they exist in. We'll get into that later, hopefully. But I now go back to school. It's my 3rd year for an internship. I'm going into my senior year of college, and we were a plastic laminate shop, but across the street was a high-end architectural woodworking facility. They happen to be an AWI member as well. And the general manager over there, who I always had my eye on because rumor was he made 6 figures and he had a company truck and he showed up to work at about 10 or 11 o'clock and he left at about 2 or 3. Who doesn't want that job, Jacob?
Yeah.
Right? So I'm watching him from afar and I say, I want to be that guy. I also said that I want to be that guy, the owner of the plastic laminate shop, because again, my perception, he showed up to work at 11 or noon. We went out to eat for lunch and then he would leave at 2 or 3 and talk about going to play golf. Also, I'd like to have that job. Sounds fun. So he comes across the street and says, hey, would you do an internship for us this summer? I would like to move you into AutoCAD and do some project management engineering. Of course, I'm all in and I get to work right across the street from the guys who gave me my start. And now I get to learn from this icon who makes 6 figures, has a company truck, has a cell phone. Again, this is 2001 or 2 people. So cell phones weren't everywhere and in every little toddler's pocket. But that summer, I get to see a whole nother side of woodworking that I would yet to be exposed to. And you also get to peel the onions back. I need to tell the real stories of these owners and this general manager that the perception was they showed up at work at 10 or 11. Well, that's because they were doing job site meetings or they were at home doing bids and didn't want to be distracted or something else. And that leave at 2 or 3 was I can hit a job site on the way home or I need to run by. We actually had to do this, go pick up prints to bid for the next one at a print house. And again, people are like, how old is Doug? Yeah. It wasn't what perception was, but it was still a phenomenal career and a path. Right. And so I go back to school my senior year, and in October, that general manager, he calls me and says, hey, I'm going to go start my own business and I want you to be my first employee I hire. And that was cool. It also sets you up for senioritis. And so you're like, yeah, I'm a senior. I don't need this. I already got a job. And so thankfully finished strong, got the education, went to work, and our primary market was high-end residential cabinetry. And we were in the Kansas City market doing $1 million+ homes. And that was a whole new eye-opening experience for me because growing up, I think my parents bought the house we lived in for $80,000. And now I'm building just kitchen cabinets alone that could be $60,000, $80,000 in a package. Good experience, but a whole different life than how I was raised or had been around before. So from there, I get my feet wet. I start in spring break, really before I graduate. We start doing installation. We start building cabinets. It's just he and I. And then I graduate in May. He hires a shop foreman. I get to sit in my role as being an estimator, a salesman, a project manager, AutoCAD draftsman. We eventually buy microvellum. We buy a CNC router. I fall in love with all of that and just truly enjoy my next 3.5 years learning the industry. Is this where we take a break?
Yeah. So I want to recap a couple of things and dig in. So I know there's a lot more to between where you're at and your progression and where you're at now, right? But a couple things, and what I really want to talk about is and glean from this, because you're describing like your path to discovering millwork, but discovering a passion and a joy for millwork and for this industry, right? As well
Absolutely.
as the opportunity, I believe it sounds like were afforded to you and people who invested in you throughout the process. And today I've spoken with many guests. I speak with many company owners, as I know you do, who today we're trying to figure out how to replicate that. How do we create that today to get young people into this industry? Like, I think as an industry, everybody's trying to crack that code. And so asking you to be a little bit introspective here to share with people, is there anything that you were looking back, how much of your path to where you're at and discovering that passion, how much of it was the people along the way, the opportunities along the way, and how much of it was just the chemistry of Doug and you as an individual? Does that make sense?
It absolutely does make sense. And you lit a spark in me that I hope these words come out correctly. All right, you ready? And we don't have an audience here to boo or to cheer for us. Unfortunately, in a podcast, everybody listens and they have their own emotional reaction in their own environment. And we'll never know what that is. So here we go. Is what I experienced unique? I don't think so. Jacob, I bet if I pulled you on a podcast and said, tell me about the journey of Jacob, and then you just gave me this little, I did this and now I'm the owner of Mill, and I'm like, well, there's got to be more, but like, tell me the more, tell me that. And what I just shared with the audience was probably way oversharing. There's some people like, is he ever going to get onto this? Here's my get onto this point that I think stitches back to your answer. When you hear my story, it wasn't a 1-month fix. It wasn't a 6-month fix. It wasn't a 1-year hook. It wasn't a 3-year hook. Let's just be honest and let's say that it started as a freshman in high school. It had to grow all the way through 5 years of college and then a couple years into the industry. So for Doug Hague to truly have it hooked and set in his mouth and tugging him over to an industry that he absolutely loves today, you're talking 9-10 years. And the difficult thing about this conversation is, Jacob, most people who have the struggle or say we can't attract talent won't even give it 10 months, much less 10 years to set a hook.
Right.
The people who've heard me speak before, they know what line is coming now, but I've said it too many times, but maybe you have different listeners. So maybe I can reach somebody that'll have an impact. You can't plant seedling today and cut down firewood tomorrow. You plant a tree in your backyard and you wait 20 to 30 years to see the beauty, to benefit from the shade, to understand all the aspects that tree could become. And we live in an instant gratification world that we're like, I got a problem and let's fix it. And by the way, we're males, so we're the worst at wanting to fix problems.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll just own that right now. But that's, you want Doug Hague's opinion of where we struggle or how do you replicate what Doug did? And I say it's an investment of time. And you're going to plant 100 trees and 90 of them are going to die. Right? That's the not fun part of the podcast.
Yeah.
But 10 of them are going to grow and be the best trees in your backyard. And you should never regret it. Now, let's talk about these people who invested in my life. The first one was my 4-H person. She never saw a dime from me. I'm going to say I'm grateful that the position that I hold today is that I was able to give her public thanks at an AWI convention 3 years ago. She still writes me thank you letters and appreciates that day and that I would stop and thank her for that. Next up, my high school shop teacher. I give him kudos every time I see him and I tell him thank you, but he's never made an extra dollar because he turned out Doug Hague to be successful in our industry. He also turned out other kids who went to Pitt State and entered the wood industry and everything else. So I'm not alone on that path. Then you talk about these next two owners, one was the owner, one was the general manager, turned into an owner. They poured a ton into me. Now with the individual that I just interned with for 2 years, did I ever give him return back on his money? I hope so. I hope as an intern that I was able to provide more value than I was extracting via a paycheck in the summers. But to the owner that I worked for 3.5 years, I know he would come on your podcast and say, I contributed greatly to his business. Now, do I to this day, and did I for a 30-year career? No, I did not. For him, is Doug Hague a lost tree in his backyard, and was it a complete waste of his time? I don't think he would say that. We're still good enough friends to this day that I think I know exactly how he feels about me, and I'm very appreciative of that relationship. And you used the word journey in your question, which is now why we've been talking for 20 minutes on this one question. But for me, he taught me so much about being a professional, about how to treat a customer, a client, things that aren't necessarily taught in a school setting that I had not gotten to at that point. And now at AWI, so fast forward, I'm going to skip through a whole nother part of my life here. I actually leave there and I go and I'm a 9-year professor at Pittsburgh State University. The time of my life, the best job in the world. And you say, Doug, you're the CEO of AWI. I know it has many benefits and I enjoy it. But when you say why I say the best job in the world, I got paid to go to work every single day to hang out with 18 to 22-year-olds who enjoyed woodworking, and the facilities there are bar none. Any equipment of process that you want to play with, experiment. I know we couldn't call it, playing, and we can't call it toys, but when you're kids, that's what it feels like. I'm there in an environment where I can play with the best of the best toys, and I can produce with my hands and produce with my mind. Like you said, is it in your DNA? The coolest thing about this industry, we get to think things, and then through tools, technology in our own hands, we get to create those things that we thought. My humble brag here is my son is a 5-time grand champion, Johnson County, Kansas, woodworking. Yeah. So Dad, I want to build a river table this year. Okay. Dad's never poured epoxy, so I don't know how to help you. I know where we can go buy a slab, and then you're going to do it from here. The artwork that he did in that epoxy clearly was not me, and I don't know how he's my kid, right? It's phenomenal. He made the water deep blue. He then misted it in the waterfall, and when it hits in the pond, it comes from the white ruffles that you would see at a waterfall into the deepest, purest blue part of the lake ever. His concept in his mind went from that concept to his hands delivering it to now what he stands beside and says, this is my favorite project ever. Again, I hope I'm helping somebody in our industry. I set a hook 5-6 years ago when he started with his first woodworking project 6 years ago. What does he say? Dad, I want your job when I grow up. If all of us at home reach our own kids and create our own journey and set that hook, I'm not so sure, Jacob, we would have the employee crisis that we currently have. And there's so many times I look around and say, my kids aren't interested. Is it because they saw mom and dad always work all the time? It's because they saw mom and dad the stress and strains of the business? Or is it because they saw mom and dad rejoice in what this industry could offer them and do for them? So while I'm at Pittsburgh State, the coolest part about that job is not the labs and the toys and the time, but Jacob, I was afforded the opportunity to pour my knowledge, my limited knowledge, I'll own it for what it is, to pour my limited knowledge into young individuals who would take that and build upon it and go out and better our industry. They're not doing well in industry because they're Doug Hague smart. They're doing well in industry because they took the little sliver that Doug gave them as a foundation, and now they're running in a direction. Maybe it's from Doug, but that also works too. But they're running on that foundation that was provided for them, and they're going out and they're making themselves their own individuals, and they are having a dramatic impact on our industry.
I want to interrupt there for a second, but I want to build on what you've shared so far. And I think to repackage it for people, what's so important about this, what you've shared a lot, with the first part of your journey, and you touched on this, the people that set the hook, people that invested in you, and you even left out one person that I think is very important, your uncle, who said, hey, take the wood tech, hey, come work for us. And, but I think all of this, to summarize, and this is Jacob speaking, and I'm still learning this myself, but I think as an industry, we've swung the pendulum so far towards, hey, what we do is all about what we make. Right. And away from it's about who we are and the people that do the work and the journey that they're on, which as a result now, and this is my opinion, is a very much why we're struggling with talent and getting people into this industry. And I've experienced this myself. I'm still a baby in this industry. I'm 35. Now I'm
right there with you, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, and I think people think that's tongue in cheek, but that's real. Like 35 in this industry, I don't know anything. I'm like, that's still very young. But that's very much a symptom of what we're talking about. But what you're sharing, it's not very common that people in this industry talk with the passion and the way you're sharing. And I think that's a shame that if more people in this industry shared their passion, like it's a passion, like, hey, I made a conscious decision to be in this industry, as opposed to just, I fell into this is now what I'm stuck doing. Because so too many of people in this industry do talk with pride and passion about the work they do, but it's more ego of, we do high-end architecture, we do really quality work, right? And then we would never do it that way. And CNCs are taking people's jobs and all this type of centric narrative, as opposed to, like I said, focused on the people. And it's not sexy to invest in, hey, you come do an internship with me at our company, and then they may go work somewhere else the rest of their career.
Yep.
It's not sexy to work an entire summer offloading a planer or a joiner or a table saw, but that's how it starts. I spent 2 years, my first job in this industry, I was literally turning rough sawn Sapele lumber into stave core stiles and rails. And that's how I learned. We didn't have a saw stop. We didn't have a CNC. We would outsource templates to a shop that had a CNC just to be able to radius archtop stuff, right? But that's how it starts. That's how you get here. And I talked to so many guys in this industry who are like, hey, Jacob, how do I fast forward to get to where you're at? What did you do? What's the secret? And then on the flip side is even more so owners that are like, hey, how do I find another person like you that wants to just be my engineering manager for the next 20 years? And that's the problem, is I think on both sides, we're talking two different languages. The people who might be interested are like, I don't know how to get the opportunity to be the next, to get where Doug is, to get where Jacob is, right? And owners aren't really looking at, how do I invest to give them that opportunity? It's just, how do I solve the problem I need now, which is they're forgetting how they got to where they're at. And there has to be that opportunity So bringing it back, like everything you're sharing and talking about, I think is so important. I don't want people to miss though, that what you're really talking about, what you were just starting to summarize is you loved your job at Pitts and what you're doing now. You're investing in people, and people are what make our industry what it is.
Absolutely. And people is where the next stage of my journey goes from here. When I accept the job at Pittsburgh State University, I am newly married and there are no kids involved. And we live in the Kansas City area. Pittsburgh is 115 miles from my driveway to the office, and I could drive it one way in about an hour and 45 minutes. I would drive it down on Monday morning, drive back Thursday evening, pre-kids. And then when our first son was born, I started driving it every single day. So I was putting 3.5 hours in the car every single day. For anybody like, that's stupid. It's Kansas driving. So I was going 75, 83 miles an hour. 75 is the speed limit. I'm confessing here to all the officers that were watching over me. I set the cruise control at 83 and could get a lot done. What I mean by a lot done is you're able to process a lot. I never walked in the door still thinking about work, because after an hour and 45 minutes, I could process everything that I needed to, so that when I walked in, I could be a family guy. The problem is, after doing that for 8 years, my oldest son, who was then in kindergarten, first grade, something in that realm, I walked in the front door. It was a Wednesday night, and it was about 7:30. He was just right out of the tub getting ready for bed. And he looked at me and he said, "What are you doing here?" And I knew I had a problem. When my oldest son doesn't know what I'm doing coming home from work on a normal weekday, something's got to change. And that's the why that I needed to find another opportunity. Yes, we could have moved to Pittsburgh. There's a whole other podcast about all of that. But ultimately, start looking for opportunities and find an opportunity to become the education director of AWI. What big shoes to fill. The guy that you're replacing has been with them for 29 years. So, Jacob, you talk about, hey, you're just being in this industry. We're young, we're learning, we're still new to all of it. Yeah, here you go. Here's the keys. And the guy who had it before was 29 years. So I'm very much appreciative that AWI membership is an encompassing, welcoming group that just says, hey, welcome to the team. Glad to have you here. Let's get going. And I hit the ground running with some phenomenal volunteers, amazing staff people, and had lots of fun. Then along comes Phil Duvik's announcement that he's going to retire. And there was some encouragement of, hey, Doug, we think you could be the fit. And I went through the application process of a national search. And thankfully, I can tell you it was an earned position, and excited to be the leader of AWI. I think when I was at Pitt State, I could make individuals to go into industry. And now I have the ability to help facilitate industry's direction and collaboration. And to me, I believe in strength in numbers, Jacob. You and I can go mentor 1 or 2 or 3 kids, and we can start that 10-year process and maybe grow 1 stud out of the deal. Or you and I can work together, and now we can mentor 30, 40 people, and we grow 4 studs out of the deal. Mm-hmm. That's the power of the association and the like-minded people coming together and contributing and going in an overall direction. That's the beauty of the association and why it truly is a joy. You're going to hear me say these words: honor, joy, and service. Like my position, it's nothing to ever take for granted. It could be gone tomorrow. But to be afforded this opportunity and to know that I can make an impact in the wood industry, I'm all in. So back to the passion, back to the hook, back to the whatever it may be. And at the end of the day, I want no one to say, oh, Doug Hague made an impact. It's a combination of all these things, because you called it a journey, and I love that word. It's all of that makes the impact. It's not Doug Hague, the individual, because behind Doug Hague, the individual, there's an amazing staff. Behind Doug Hague, the individual, there were amazing business owners who took me under and showed me and did these things. Behind that, there's educators behind me. Behind that, there's a mom and dad that loves me. Behind that, there's 4 brothers or 3 brothers that would correct me. That's the journey as to where I sit in this seat today. It truly is a blessing to serve. Where it goes from here, I don't know, Jacob. I'm having a ton of fun being a self-proclaimed woodworking nerd. Sure, by now it feels like there's sawdust in my DNA. If not, for sure there's lacquer thinner or something else that's been absorbed through the skin over the years. But I'm very passionate about this industry. I love all that it has afforded me for opportunities. And here's the deal. I don't believe it's exclusive. I believe the opportunities and the journey exist for anybody who's willing to pursue it. But it comes with the warning. I'm not aware of any shortcuts.
Right.
Jacob, you said people reached out. How do I be Jacob? How do I be Doug? Hard work, many years, humility, and learn every single day. If there were shortcuts, there would be many people, and Doug Jacobs, run through your list of people that you would substitute on that list. But unfortunately, that list is not nearly as long as the demand or what our industry could afford.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it also, going back to earlier in your story, I remember you even said that guy, that owner of that company that you ended up going to work for, you consciously said, hey, I want to be that guy, right? I want that
Yep.
guy. And I think that a lot of people probably have those moments and then they come and they go. And in many ways, you could say you've exceeded that, but you're also not in that same role of what that guy was. I would say your ambitions have probably continued to grow as your success as well. But that motivation, that like consciously, if you're sitting here listening and saying, hey, how do I be Doug in the future? Latch onto that's a hook, but know that, like you said, it takes hard work and it takes time. And by the time you get there, you might realize, hey, I don't want to be a chemist anymore. I want to be something else. And that's okay. But speaking to the people that might be early in this industry and are listening and they're at that opportunity, that point in their career where it's, hey, am I going to make a career out of this or am I going to move on to something else? What would you say?
You got to be willing to go all in. I didn't talk about it, but my first job right out of college, I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say I worked 70 to 80 hours. And I don't know if I just scared off every young person that says, I break out in hives if I get asked to work 41 hours. I get it. There are generational differences. I get that you are willing to tell your employee that you value your personal time. So therefore you are going to go off and go do blank instead of stay and work. My encouragement to all of you are play the long game. When you're 22, 23, 24, and you think you're only capable of working 40 to 45 hours, and that's a stretch, you're setting yourself up to tell an employer, hey, respect my time. I'll give you the bare minimum for your time. And again, this is all Doug Hague philosophy and theory and doesn't backed by anybody. So Jacob, sorry for the interjection there. But it is Doug Hague's opinion. Put in those 50, 60, 70, 80 hours when you're young and you have the time, and hanging out and partying with your friends and making those weekend memories. I promise you they will still be there. Through Doug Hague's lens, it's a lot harder to put in those times of 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week when you're 35, 40 and you have family and kids and you start getting involved in kids' activities and everything else that becomes play in your life. You look back and you go, man, I wasted a lot of time when I was young. And there is a long game and played here that work harder when you're young can position yourself. Perhaps nothing's guaranteed. I'm not preaching health and wealth here, but perhaps when you're down the road, you will see it come to fruition. You heard it in my journey. This experience built upon that experience, which allowed me to be successful in this experience. This experience allowed me to build. I don't want you to think it's just industry. When I was in education, there are students who would tell you I was there till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. But that's because I would pour that time in during the week so I could be a husband on the weekends, right? And it's about allotting your time. And I'm probably not the model to mimic of work-life balance, etc. So if that's what you're looking for in this podcast, you might want to hit the fast forward button. But you can analyze the journey. I am an open book. I love to talk about it, Jacob, and I appreciate you affording me this opportunity because both of us have stories to tell. And if we don't tell our stories, we're not reaching or grasping that next generation or that next individual. We don't know who's struggling and where they're at. But if we say something today that can inspire that individual to move on and go forward and to keep pursuing, then we've done our job here today.
No, absolutely. And I think I'll add a little bit of commentary to that because you said a lot of people are probably thinking about that work-life balance, but I think it's important to understand that at that age, like you said, okay, before you're married, before you have kids, you're in that early 20s age. That is a age where when you find something that you are passionate about and eager to learn, like putting in those extra hours isn't, what Doug's not saying is if you're just working a job and you're just saying, hey, let me just put in hours to put in hours. That's not what you're saying. If you're adding value both to yourself and to a business and solving a problem, that's the time when you're able to put that time into that thing that you've found that newfound passion about. And those hours add up to experience that, like you said, set yourself up for later now in your career. That's experience that doesn't go away. It's cumulative, if anything, exponential.
This is 100% true in education and probably 98% true in industry. You ready? When you stay after and you put in those extra hours and you're not just doing it to put in hours, you get individualized time that you wouldn't absolutely get as a group. So speak of me in terms of education. If you stay after and you work 3-4 hours with your professor after class, you're not a suck up. What you are is you're getting individualized attention for the next 3 hours where you don't have 18 to 20 other people you're competing with, or they're having to teach to the general knowledge. They can teach exactly to your knowledge. And those people said, oh, Doug, you had favorites at Pitt State. No, I didn't. I had kids who were willing to pour themselves into me. That's it. And now let's talk about industry because people say, oh, Pitt State, that's too far away or not everybody's going to college. Okay. My industry experience was when everybody else left and I rode to work with my uncle, and a shout out to Uncle Steve. He said I forgot him earlier. So here we go. When I stayed after to work with my uncle, it was everybody else left. He was getting something done so I could watch a craftsman at a higher level work quickly so I could observe and learn that way. And then he would set me up to do things that he wouldn't set up 12 people to do, 5 people, whatever it was, but he would set it up so that I could help him get out of there sooner. So that extra time is really time, if you want to be selfish about it, it's really time that you as an individual can steal and garner information that isn't always distributed freely, because from 8 to 5 or from the normal class time or whatever, there's a job to do. And that's keep everybody productive kind of at this level. And some of you are going to be above it, and some of you are going to be below it. And for the most part, it's management's job to kick these people up here to this status quo line. Same way in education. I can't stop and teach the best kid in class 3 steps ahead of where he's at if I have 19 others who have no clue what we're talking about. But after hours, I absolutely can. And you said it beautiful there, Jacob. Thank you for interjecting that.
Yeah, absolutely. Diving a little bit more into this we talked a lot about speaking to, the young people getting in the industry. Now, I guess addressing and speaking to the employer, the leaders that are on the other side of the spectrum, and maybe be saying, hey, as we've all heard, nobody wants to work, nobody's joining this industry, all of that type of mindset, or you can't get people that have the motivation or the aptitude. How do we speak to those people?
I give an awful answer to this question. You ready? I 100% say it's your culture. You're like, Doug, that's such a chicken answer. I've yet to see where it's not true, Jacob. The culture that you create for your employees attract and retain more than you have any idea. And it's been said, and it's absolutely true. You go, we don't have a culture. We just got people who show up. You have one, you're just not aware of it, which means it's probably not a good one.
Yeah.
Culture is not something, again, that's fixed overnight. That's a long-term game. This is where people say, Doug, you've never been a business owner. Yeah, I know, but I've been sat right next to one. But until you wear the actual shoes and understand all the stress and all the tribulations, you're not it. Okay. I do lean more towards, in my style of management, is open book and open door. And I live that out at AWI. I live that out at Pittsburgh State. I believe in transparency, Jacob. And again, when I say I can't hire anyone and nobody wants to join this industry, and by the way, nobody has got to be the world's biggest person, because I hear about them all the time. But I would like to tell the story that someone will join you, not no one. You'll meet someone instead of meeting no one, will join you when you get your culture correct. And culture does not mean pay. Culture does not mean you have to be an open book. Culture might mean you talk more about work-life balance in a job interview than you talk about their skill sets. That might be culture to some. That's hard to swallow for most owners, because they say, I'm giving you a paycheck to contribute. If you're not contributing to the bottom line, we're not going to have the doors open, right? There's that argument or conversation to be had, Jacob, right? You're an owner. At the end of the day, if we're not contributing, what are we doing? But the culture of how you contribute and how you build upon somebody, I really strip it down to say, what are you doing to pour back into your employees? Or if your answer is you find no one, is it that you believe in extracting from your employees all the time? Doug Hague theory, Doug Hague concepts, take them for what they're worth. But I love those types of conversations so that I can learn and maybe share a different perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think for those people, if you find yourself saying in conversations, sharing online, hey, I can't find anybody, nobody wants to work, all these types of things, that is more of an indictment and a statement about yourself than it is the industry. And I don't think people think about it that way. But what you're really saying is nobody wants to work for you. And because your perspective is all shaped about what you know, and all you know, your company, your experience, right? And a lot of people say, oh, I talk to other owners. Yeah, you're probably talking to other people with the same mindset, the same thoughts and the same things. And so one, obviously you have to change something, because continuing to do what you're doing is going to yield their same results. But two, talking about culture, I think a lot of people think, okay, how do I actively form a better culture? How do I actively change? Yeah. And as an owner, like, you very much shape it more than you realize. And I've worked at so many companies, worked for so many owners, and in a USA moment where it was very much trying to merge multiple cultures from different parts of the country, you don't realize how different and in different cultures, not every culture needs to be the same. Don't try to match what somebody else has. What is actually working that is beneficial about your culture? So I worked at companies where if you told people they couldn't work overtime, they would be mad. And I've worked at companies where if you told people they needed to work overtime, they would be.
Yep.
Both have value, right?
Yep.
Lean into the strengths that you have in your culture. But at the same time, like, what are people saying about your business? If people are posting on Glassdoor, hey, I had a terrible experience working at this company, you can argue and say that's not true, but that's their reality. That is
Correct.
A part of your culture. And you have to be able to own that and say, okay, how did we get to this point? And if people are saying, hey, they have a culture, works too hard or works too many hours, that's probably true. And if you don't want that to be your culture, then you have to not do those things. It's really pretty simple, but it doesn't mean that you have to try to emulate somebody else's culture. Play into your strengths, look at where you are regionally, the type of people that work for you, and leverage those and do more of that. And ask your people, hey, what would make our culture better? And let them invest in that.
It's a great question. I just spoke on AWFS, and because I gave the lame answer of what differentiates this, I say culture, and then I just duck. Well, you figure it out. I'm going to give you two more words, and I'm going to say, I feel like before I give you these two words, and people get out pencil and paper, since I haven't done the educator thing, told you to write down some homework yet. You can write culture at the top. And then Jacob said, how do you build culture? You're doing one of these things already, and you have no idea. The second one that I think should come first, you're probably not doing. Here's these two words. First word I want you to write down is intentionality. How much intention are you showing in your decisions and what you do? And are you playing the long game? Because again, you want these employees for the long game. How intentional are you being with your decisions, your reactions, your emotions, your everything that pours into the simple word culture? Then the next word that I'm going to tell you you're already doing, but I need you to be better at it, is consistency. So I think your culture is defined by intentionality and consistency. Now, you said, Doug, how do you know I'm already being consistent? Because I already know you have a culture, and I'm not going to be nice here, Jacob, so hang on. If you walk in and be a jerk, I bet you're a jerk every day. I bet you're probably pretty good at it, and your employees know that you're a jerk every single day. So the consistency part, I buy in that you can probably do that pretty easily. The problem is the intentionality. Did you intend to be a jerk? In some situations, some environments, some whatever, it's required. I've never worked inside the prison system, but something tells me that those officers in there, they probably aren't winning with kindness. I don't know. Get myself in trouble here. But in the woodworking industry, Doug Hague's opinion, I don't know if that's going to win over the culture that's going to attract and retain employees and help you win over the next guy. I think you're going to meet a lot of nobodies when you're trying to find somebody. And really what we want to get to is everybody. We would like to meet that individual.
Yeah.
And so I believe you just got to start small with intentionality list of what do I want to be, and then figure out how to get there, and then hold yourself to it. Your employees so many times are so used to you coming up with a new idea, and then how long will this last? How long will this last? Show them that consistency, show them your sincerity through your consistency, and then you will start to change your entire culture. You're going to find that everybody who wants to be on your team, you're going to sift through the somebodies and hopefully start avoiding the nobodies. That's my hurrah speech, Jacob.
Yeah. One last thing that just came to mind that I want to point out, because I know a lot of people are going to be listening to this and saying 20 years ago, 30 years ago, this worked and people just wanted to come to work and were okay with having a manager or an owner that barked at them every day. And that was just part of it. That shaped us. That shaped a lot of people still in this industry and who they are. But we started this conversation, in some ways talk about like, hey, we've got a talent problem today that we didn't have before. You know what else has changed? We're not just competing with other mill workers or other people in this industry. We're competing with other industries entirely, just didn't exist 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Yep.
And those industries have what we don't have, which is different than what we had to do 20, 30 years ago. So you have to look outside of like in culture collectively, not just our company culture, but society changes, industries change, opportunities change. So as from a business side of things, if you're trying to figure out how do I continue to evolve my business to stay competitive and get people into it, you have to look outside of what am I really competing against? Because if people aren't coming into this industry, they're going and doing something else. And why is that? What are they getting there we don't have?
Jacob, you're a smart enough guy in the CNC world. You ready? With the exact same skill set, I can machine titanium, aluminum, or I can machine MDF.
Mm-hmm.
Exact same skill set. The only thing I'm changing is feed rates, maybe some coolant, spindle speed. That's it. But I have the talent to adjust all of those.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So those are many more opportunities that afford me. And oftentimes that's where the conversation says, and they pay a lot more, right? And so we start screaming, woe is me. But I've seen it. I've witnessed it. Her name's Lauren Borland. You can talk to her about it. Custom Source Woodworking in Washington State. She literally had people come to her doorstep and say they wanted to work at her facility because of a news story that was picked up about culture and profit sharing and how the employees truly enjoy working there. Lady quit her job that was paying more money to go be a part of that culture. And so that is the aspect that's not 20, 30 years ago. That is today's reality. Culture is king. Some people will forego money to enjoy culture. Now, some people substitute culture with work-life balance. Some people substitute culture with money. Some people substitute it with, I really enjoy my boss. All those are the right answer. I'm not here to give a definition of culture, which is why I gave you the two broad terms of intentionality and consistency. And Lauren and her team have chosen an intentional path, and they have stayed consistent with it. Are there bumps in the road? Yes. Have they missed dates that they thought they would hit with their employees? Yes. But then when they hit that final finish line, they celebrated it like mad. And then that turns into news stories. And then that turns into people knocking on their door saying, will you hire me? That is success of culture. That is success of winning in an environment, in a situation where many others say, how in the way do I find a path forward? I'm very much an optimistic person. I enjoy the positive side. I understand there are negative side, and we could discuss all of those too. But unfortunately, when you play all the what ifs, we can go on forever, and none of us will ever have an answer. When we talk about the positive side of things, I say it always ends with go try it and tell me, right? That way we don't have to play all the negative games.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because I've had many different episodes now with different people with totally different topics. So many of them end up here talking about culture with company owners, everybody. And I think this is there's a lot of value added. I appreciate you taking time to be out on here and speak with us. Before we get into, I've got two questions I'd like to ask every guest before you go. But for people listening, if you enjoy this podcast, you enjoy these types of conversations, please and share this. And I think that the more the people hear this and hear voices like Doug's, the more we're going to be able to address these types of issues we're talking about in this industry. The two questions I ask every guest, the first one is, what do you see changing in our industry over the next 5 to 10 years?
Change in industry in the next 5 or 10 years. I'm going to stick with the trend that's been out in front of us. And I think it's been here since the 1800s or maybe even before that. You ready? It is the adaptation to innovation of technology. Like I see how I'm good at giving these lame answers. We will always find another resource to make us more profitable, more efficient, more whatever. The brain of a human being is fascinating to me, of how we can analyze something and go, yeah, but what if you do this? Or what if we do that? So in the next 5 to 10 years, that's going to continue like it always has. Now, what I don't own is the crystal ball to say, what is that resource that's going to be built and going to do? Go back to, I'm going to go early on. I don't even know the year to assess to it, but the pen router was invented. C.R. Andrew was talking about making parts for the mining industry, and they hung a bit on the top side like this and spun it around. What an awful idea in 2023. What a fantastic idea the year it was invented. The amount of nub that machine created and everything else. So then what did they do? Someone analyzed it and said, let's invert it. Let's have it come up from the bottom. How much safer is that? And it's phenomenally safer. It's an unbelievable machine and still has its place today. Now somebody looks at that and goes, yeah, but that's a router and I had to move the stuff around like this. What if the router moved itself? We did that through a tape machine and reel to reel through punches on a machine. They were called NC machines, people. But then someone's like, this paper is old and you got to punch all this. What happens if we make a mistake, etc. And oh, by the way, this thing called a computer was invented. Oh, now we have CNCs. So now let's let the computer drive this router and tell it what to do. That hits us in, I don't know, it hits our industry in the 90s, but when it becomes affordable and virtually everybody has them as 2000s-ish, somewhere in that range. And so from there, we now look at this, we go, okay, we got a router. Now it's difficult to load it. So we analyze the next problem, and then along comes the IntelliStores or any other systems that does all of our stacking for us. Then we do the robotic onloading, offloading. Now we have robotic arms that are grabbing parts and sending them through edge banders and loading parts into case clamps and building it. And this picture in my mind is at least 12 years old. I was at a Styles EBC, and they show this video of a factory in Europe where a gentleman parks a bunk of material. Nobody touches it from after that. It picks up, goes on the panel saw, it gets cut, board, band board, etc. Robots put it in a case clamp, squeezes. The next time an individual touches it, it's a complete cabinet. If that's 10 years old, Jacob, where's the future of our industry? Clearly in innovation, clearly in technology, but at all of these things, they're finding ways to get in trouble, lessen labor. But I'm going to give him exact credit. Ethan Adams of Adams Group in Florida, he bought the carousel at IWF, feel like it would be 4 or 5 years ago, somewhere in that range, of the robotic arm off the panel saw that would pick up parts and do this and do that. And he said to me, Doug, I'm not buying this to take anybody's job. He said, I bought this because I have 10, 15 job openings that I can't find. So now the guy that used to take the parts off, I can go put that individual in one of those 10 to 15 jobs. And so technology didn't necessarily fill a void that I had. It allowed me to take a resource that I had and reallocate it. And that, I think, is also true for the next 5 to 10 years. We will continue to reallocate resources. You lit my fuse here. So
you want to do another second episode about this?
Yeah, maybe we should just leave them right here.
Yeah. No, I think that is a whole topic I'd love to talk about, because I do think people are very fearful, about automation and taking labor away. But in reality, and you can look back at history, you gave some examples about it creates new opportunities. And so the reality is there is a lot of labor that there's jobs that people just don't want to do and that frankly don't pay well. They're not good positions that in the past we used to have people that did a lot of manual labor that we don't have to anymore. And that is a net positive for the culture. A tough transition period where full positions and industries do go away, but they open up entirely new opportunities. And so I believe in that type of transition.
I don't want to get you in trouble with time. And if we do have to stop right here, I can calm down. I'd be honored to come back again if your listeners would have me.
Yeah.
It's been a joy. Yes, I'm passionate about all of this, but at the end, it's been good therapy for me.
Yeah.
When I can get like-minded people to discuss topics that feel the same way or have the same interest, it's a lot of fun to get together and to make these conversations prevalent and to keep them out there so that people realize good things are happening in our industry and will continue to do. And you're not alone in your struggles. If you listened to this and said, yeah, but he didn't talk about that, or he didn't talk about this, and struggles are real. All of us go through them. But going back to why I enjoy AWI is we're an association of manufacturers. I didn't say we were perfect. You look at our cost of doing business survey last year, it doesn't mean you're profitable either, right? The struggles are real for everybody. But when you can come together and discuss them and know that you have avenues and resources and somebody say, try this or try that, or that thing, Jacob, gets me fired up to jump out of bed every day to say, I can be a part of that.
That's awesome.
All right. Hopefully the listeners are not asleep. You said they like to hear my voice. Probably not. It'll put you to sleep. I have proof of that in the college classroom. I would say, if not my voice, please hear my message. If nothing else resonated today with you, understand that my heart is, I love this industry. It affords people, anybody, the opportunity who will go out and work to grasp it. It's there for you. I promise. Keep up the good work. Keep going. Our industry needs you, and the dividends will pay off eventually. You are playing a long game. That's it, Jacob, for today.
Awesome. Thank you, Doug. For people that want to reach out and find out more, what's the best way to get a hold of you or find out more about AWI?
Yeah, AWI, the website, awinet.org. I appreciate that. You want to get a hold of me, dhague at awinet.org is typically the easiest way. I do travel a fair amount, so email is an easy way to keep up with you. But happy to help anything anybody can think of. But again, I encourage all of you to be consistent in intentionality. There you go.
Awesome. Thank you, Doug. I look forward to seeing you in September out in Arizona and hopefully having you on again so we can continue this conversation.
All right. Thank you, Jacob. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Do you want to stay up to date about industry insights, new content, and our community of millworkers? Go to ductworksmw.com to sign up for our newsletter. I'll see you in the next episode of Verify in Field.